Hi, everybody. Peter Schiff again. It is Tuesday, August 25th, 2009. Well, today we got the news that it is official. Barack Obama is re-nominating Ben Bernanke for another term as chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, of course, he needs to be reconfirmed by the Senate. Now, one of the biggest problems with this nomination, to me, is all the praise that is being lauded on Ben Bernanke by President Obama, by Congress, by Wall Street, by the media, for what a great job he's done, that he saved us from depression. And since he's done such a good job, he should be reappointed. Now, maybe he should be reappointed under the theory that the devil we know is better than the devil we don't know. And who knows who Barack Obama might appoint that could be even worse than Ben Bernanke. But make no mistake, he is a devil. He's not a saint. He has done a horrific job as Fed chairman. Certainly, if you want to say he's done a good job in temporarily easing the pain, he's done that, but with major negative long-run consequences. He simply repeated the mistakes of Alan Greenspan, who did the same thing, who inherited a busting stock market bubble and a recession, and he saved the economy. He made sure that the recession of 2001 and 2002 was very mild. Yet the actions he took to do this is the reason that we had all the problems in 2008. We would never have had a housing bubble. We wouldn't have had a subprime mortgage crisis had it not been for what the Fed did to ease the pain of that recession. And that, of course, was why Greenspan was so widely heralded as the greatest Fed chairman ever, when I correctly labeled him the worst Fed chairman ever. Now, Ben Bernanke is receiving accolades for making the same mistakes. I mean, we're never going to learn. If Ben Bernanke was actually doing a good job, everybody would hate him. Remember, the last Fed chairman that did a good job was Paul Volcker. Nobody liked Paul Volcker. Everybody wanted him to resign, or they wanted him to be impeached. When he had interest rates up at 20%, we had that big recession, 81, 82. They wanted his head on a stick. Everybody, even Jack Kemp, conservative Congressman Jack Kemp, wanted Volcker to resign. It was only Ronald Reagan that stood by him and stood by the Fed independence. Now, of course, in hindsight, now, after the fact, everybody gives him high marks. He has a lot of credibility because he made the tough choices. Ben Bernanke is making none of the tough choices, and he's making sure that Congress doesn't have to make any tough choices. By monetizing all the deficits, he's letting Congress off the hook. He's making it so they don't have to cut spending. They don't have to balance the books. They can run these huge deficits because of the lousy job that Ben Bernanke is doing. I mean, Greenspan did a terrible job bringing interest rates to 1%. Ben Bernanke is doing an even worse job bringing them to 0%. And look at all the stuff that he's buying. Look at the Fed's balance sheet under Ben Bernanke. Look at all the mortgages they're buying, the asset-backed securities, the credit card debt, the auto loans, the student loans. The consequences of this are horrific. Ben Bernanke, rather than taking the punch bowl away like Paul Volcker, he's the life of the party. He's the guy that's making all the beer runs. He's getting all the girls. No wonder he's so well liked. But we don't want a Fed chairman who's trying to win a popularity contest. We don't want him being popular with Wall Street. After all, they're getting all the bailouts. Why shouldn't they like him? Why shouldn't the guys at Goldman Sachs or AIG? They love Ben Bernanke, right? And why shouldn't the politicians like him? He's letting them off the hook. But average Americans are going to come to despise him. He is the guy that is responsible, or is going to be responsible, for runaway inflation, for sky-high consumer prices, for sky-high interest rates, for a complete collapse of our economy. That's the trade-off. That's the long-term pain of this short-term gain. Ben Bernanke claims he is an expert on the Great Depression. He doesn't know anything about the Great Depression. If he was a student of mine, I'd give him an F in the Depression. Now, one thing he said is he wants to make sure there's no Great Depression on his watch. And maybe that will happen. Maybe if his watch is short enough, there won't be. It'll be on his predecessor's watch, or at least that's when we'll try to finally figure out that we're in the middle of a Great Depression. But anyway, he in a perfect world he would not be renominated. He's done a horrific job. We need a real central banker who has some courage, who has some integrity, who actually understands the free market, who understands the causes and the consequences of both the Great Depression and the current bubble, boom and bust. Now remember, Ben Bernanke got his nickname Helicopter Ben while he was on the Board of Governors under Greenspan as the biggest cheerleader of the 1% interest rate. He's the one that said the Fed had to save us from deflation when it was a non-existent threat. He was probably the most vocal and one of the worst people and most culpable on the Federal Reserve during the Greenspan era while the bubble was being inflated. And now here he is trying to take credit for putting out a fire that he started. I mean, come on. And of course, he hasn't put it out. He's poured gasoline on it, and now it's going to be a raging inferno. And nobody understands this. The president doesn't understand this, or Congress doesn't understand it, Wall Street doesn't understand it, and if they do understand it, they're keeping quiet. I don't know why there are so few people, other than myself, that actually are criticizing this guy's appointment, a renomination. And I remember when Alan Greenspan stepped down, right, when his term ended, everybody was talking about how great he was, how he was the greatest Fed chairman in history. And I pointed out, I mentioned it in my book, that he would go down as the worst Fed chairman because there was a disaster that was about to happen that was a direct consequence of what he did. All Greenspan did was get out of Dodge. But, and now, of course, when he's interviewed or in his books, he tries to claim that these problems were a 100-year flood. I pointed out this wasn't a 100-year flood. Greenspan blew up the dam. That's why there was a flood. And now Ben Bernanke is following in his footsteps. And I predicted when I wrote Crash Proof that even though Alan Greenspan was the worst Fed chairman ever, that it's just possible that Ben Bernanke could outdo him in that capacity. And we'll see. So far, it's a toss-up. I still say that Greenspan is worse than Bernanke. But if he gets confirmed to another term, who knows? Maybe Bernanke's title is in jeopardy. Greenspan's title is in jeopardy. He might just be surpassed for the award of worst Fed chairman ever because it might end up going to Ben Bernanke. That's it for today. So long, everyone.